dared to stare, unveiling the shadows of fear on fear files.
It all started with a simple prescription, a new medication meant to alleviate the chronic pain that had plagued me for years. At first, I welcomed the relief it promised, eagerly popping the small white pills like they were candy, unaware of the horrors that lay hidden within their innocuous exterior. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to experience strange and unsettling hallucinations. Visions of grotesque creatures lurking in the shadows, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light as they reached out to me with twisted, gnarled hands. I tried to convince myself that it was just a side effect of the medication, a temporary glitch in my brain's chemistry that would soon pass with time. But the hallucinations only grew worse, their grip on my mind tightening with each passing moment until I could no longer distinguish between what was real and what was merely a trick of my fevered imagination. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality, descending into a nightmare world where nothing was as it seemed, and danger lurked around every corner. Desperate for answers, I delved deeper into the drug's history, scouring the internet for any information I could find about its origins and potential side effects. What I discovered chilled me to the bone. The medication had never been meant to be released to the public. It was the result of a top-secret government experiment gone horribly wrong. Designed to enhance cognitive function and increase productivity, it had instead unleashed a wave of madness and terror upon unsuspecting test subjects, driving them to the brink of insanity with its potent cocktail of chemicals. I realized then that I was not alone in my suffering, that there were others out there who had fallen victim to the drug's malevolent influence, their lives torn apart by the hallucinations that haunted their every waking moment. And as I stared down at the bottle of pills in my trembling hands, I knew that I had to act before it was too late. I contacted a lawyer, determined to hold the pharmaceutical company responsible for the suffering they had caused. But as I prepared to take them to court, I received a chilling message, a warning from someone who claimed to have inside knowledge of the drug's true purpose. "Stay away," the message read. "They'll stop at nothing to protect their secrets." I knew then that I was in grave danger, that the pharmaceutical company would do whatever it took to silence me and anyone else who dared to speak out against them. But I refused to be intimidated. I would not rest until justice was served, until those responsible for unleashing such horror upon the world were held accountable for their actions. For in the end, the truth will always come to light, no matter how hard they try to bury it beneath a mountain of lies and deception. And as I stared down at the pills that had brought me to the brink of madness, I vowed to do whatever it took to ensure that no one else would suffer the same fate. As a horror writer, I thought I had seen it all, the twisted nightmares that lurked within the recesses of my imagination, waiting to be brought to life on the page. But when I stumbled upon a book that seemed to hold the key to unlocking my creativity, I had no idea that I was about to become part of a horror story unlike anything I had ever experienced before. It started innocently enough, a trip to the local bookstore in search of inspiration, a chance encounter with a dusty tome hidden away on a forgotten shelf. The cover was plain and unassuming, its pages yellowed with age and its spine cracked from years of neglect. But as I flipped through its contents, I felt a shiver run down my spine, a sense of familiarity that I couldn't quite place. The book was filled with stories that seemed to come to life as I read them, their words leaping off the page and dancing before my eyes like specters in the night. It was as if the book itself was alive, its pages pulsating with a dark energy that seemed to draw me in deeper with each passing moment. But as I delved further into its depths, I realized that there was something sinister lurking within its pages, something that transcended mere fiction and reached out to touch the very fabric of reality itself. The stories were filled with key elements from the works of Stephen King, characters and settings that seemed eerily familiar, as as if they had been plucked from the depths of my own imagination and brought to life in vivid detail. At first, I was exhilarated by the discovery, a chance to step into the shoes of my literary hero and experience his world firsthand. But as the stories unfolded, I began to realize that there was a price to be paid for meddling with forces beyond my control, a price that would cost me everything I held dear. The lines between fiction and reality began to blur, as I found myself trapped within the very stories that I had once thought were nothing more than figments of my imagination. Characters from the book appeared before me, their eyes blazing with an otherworldly light as they beckoned me deeper into the darkness that lurked within their world. I tried to fight back, to find a way to escape the clutches of the book and return to the safety of my own reality. But with each passing moment, the stories grew more powerful, their influence spreading like a virus through my mind until I could no longer distinguish between what was real and what was merely a product of my fevered imagination. And then, just when I thought all hope was lost, I discovered the truth. The book was a gateway to a realm of darkness and despair, a realm that threatened to consume me whole if I didn't find a way to break free from its grasp before it was too late. I knew then that I had to find a way to destroy the book, to banish its malevolent influence from the world once and for all. But as I reached out to grab hold of it, I felt a hand close around my wrist. A hand that belonged to a character from one of the stories, its touch like ice against my skin as it whispered a chilling warning in my ear. "Be careful what you wish for," it hissed. "For in the world of horror, sometimes the nightmares are all too real." And as I stared down at the book, its pages fluttering in the breeze like the wings of a malevolent spirit, I knew that I was in for the fight of my life. A fight against forces beyond my comprehension. Forces that threatened to drag me down into the depths of darkness and despair from which there could be no escape. It was the end of the world, or at least that's what it felt like. The streets were deserted, the air thick with the stench of death and decay as hordes of ravenous zombies roamed the land, hunting for their next meal. I was the lone survivor, my every waking moment spent in a desperate struggle for survival as I fought to stay one step ahead of the undead horde that seemed determined to consume me whole. But then, just when I thought all hope was lost, I stumbled upon it, an old door hidden away in the ruins of what used to be a bustling city street. It was a strange sight amidst the chaos, a single door standing defiantly amidst the rubble, its wooden frame weathered and worn from years of neglect. Without hesitation, I pushed open the door and stepped through, my heart pounding in my chest as I entered the darkness beyond. What I found on the other side took my breath away. A sprawling mansion, its grandeur a stark contrast to the desolation of the world outside. For a moment, I allowed myself to believe that I was safe, that I had finally found refuge from the horrors that lurked outside its walls. But as I explored the mansion's shadowy corridors and dimly lit rooms, I began to realize that there was something deeply wrong about this place, something that sent shivers racing down my spine with every step I took. The mansion was haunted, its walls echoing with the whispers of the dead as they beckoned me deeper into the darkness that lurked within. I tried to ignore the feeling of unease that gnawed at my insides, to convince myself that it was just my imagination running wild in the face of the unknown. But deep down, I knew that there was something more at play, that the mansion held secrets darker and more sinister than anything I had ever encountered before. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I stumbled upon a room filled with horrors beyond my wildest nightmares. It was a laboratory, its walls lined with cages filled with twisted, grotesque creatures that seemed to stare at me with eyes filled with malice and hatred. I tried to run, to escape the nightmare that had become my reality. But as I turned to flee, I found myself face to face with the mansion's owner, a man whose eyes gleamed with madness as he smiled at me with lips twisted into a cruel mockery of a grin. "You're not going anywhere," he whispered, his voice like ice against my skin. "Not until I've had my fun." And as I stared into the abyss of his gaze, I knew that I was in for a fight for my very soul against forces beyond my comprehension, forces that threatened to drag me down into the depths of darkness and despair from which there could be no escape. For in the end, the true horror was not the zombies that roamed the land. It was the darkness that lurked within the hearts of men, a darkness that could consume us all if we weren't careful. And as I prepared to face the horrors that awaited me in the mansion's shadowy depths, I knew that my only hope for survival lay in finding the strength to confront the darkness that lurked within myself. It was supposed to be a night of fun and laughter, a Halloween party like no other, filled with costumes, candy, and good times with friends. But as we stepped through the door of the old mansion that had been transformed into our haunted playground for the evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, that we were walking into a nightmare from which there would be no escape. The atmosphere was electric, the air thick with the scent of pumpkin spice and anticipation as we mingled with the other partygoers, our laughter echoing through the halls like a chorus of ghosts. But as the night wore on and the shadows grew longer, I began to sense a darkness lurking beneath the surface, a darkness that seemed to seep into my very bones, filling me with a sense of unease that I couldn't shake no matter how hard I tried. It started with a simple game of truth or dare, a harmless diversion to pass the time as we waited for the witching hour to arrive. But as the dares grew more daring and the truths more twisted, I could feel the tension in the room mounting with each passing moment, like a storm gathering on the horizon, ready to unleash its fury upon us at any moment. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the power went out, plunging the mansion into darkness and sending a chill down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. We stumbled through the shadows, our hearts pounding in our chests as we searched for a way to escape the darkness that seemed to be closing in on us from all sides. But as we fumbled our way through the maze-like corridors of the mansion, I began to realize that we were not alone, that there was something lurking in the darkness, something ancient and malevolent that had been awakened by our presence and was now thirsting for our blood. It was then that I remembered the legend, the curse that had been whispered about in hushed tones by the townsfolk for generations, a curse that was said to be unleashed upon the world every Halloween night, transforming the innocent into the monstrous and the living into the dead. I tried to warn the others, to convince them to flee before it was too late, but they laughed off my warnings, dismissing them as nothing more than the ramblings of a scared child. And as we continued our journey through the darkness, I could feel the curse tightening its grip around us, its tendrils reaching out to ensnare us in its deadly embrace. And then, just when I thought all hope was lost, we stumbled upon the source of the curse, a dark altar hidden away in the depths of the mansion, its stone surface stained with the blood of countless victims who had fallen prey to its insatiable hunger over the centuries. I knew then that our only hope for survival lay in destroying the altar and breaking the curse once and for all. But as we raised our weapons and prepared to strike, I could feel the darkness closing in around us, threatening to consume us whole if we didn't act fast. For in the end, the curse of Halloween was not just a legend. It was a reality, a nightmare from which there was no waking up, a darkness that threatened to swallow us whole if we didn't find a way to escape its clutches before it was too late. And as I stared into the abyss of its gaze, I knew that our fight for survival had only just begun.
It was supposed to be a simple gift, a new doll for my daughter Emily to add to her ever-growing collection of toys. I thought nothing of it as I handed over the money to the cashier and left the store, the doll cradled in my arms like a precious treasure. But little did I know that I had just brought something into our home that would unleash a wave of terror upon us unlike anything we had ever experienced before. At first, everything seemed normal. Emily's eyes lit up with delight as she unwrapped the doll, her chubby fingers reaching out to caress its porcelain face with gentle reverence. I watched with a smile as she hugged it close to her chest, already lost in a world of make-believe where anything was possible. But as the days went by, strange things began to happen in our house. Things that I couldn't explain, no matter how hard I tried. Objects would go missing, only to reappear in the most unlikely of places. Strange noises echoed through the halls at night, the sound of whispered voices drifting through the darkness like a haunting melody from a forgotten dream. I tried to dismiss it as my imagination running wild, to convince myself that there was a rational explanation for the bizarre occurrences that seemed to plague our home. But deep down, I knew that something was terribly wrong, that the doll, with its empty eyes and frozen smile, was somehow at the center of it all. Emily's behavior began to change, becoming increasingly erratic and unpredictable as she spent more and more time with the doll. She would talk to it for hours on end, her voice tinged with a strange mixture of reverence and fear as she whispered secrets into its ear that I could never hope to understand. I tried to take the doll away, to banish it from our home and restore some semblance of normalcy to our lives. But every time I tried, Emily would throw a tantrum unlike anything I had ever seen before, her screams echoing through the house like a banshee's wail as she fought tooth and nail to keep her precious doll by her side. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I began to see it. The doll moving on its own accord, its porcelain limbs twisting and contorting in ways that should have been impossible. I watched in horror as it stalked through the darkness, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light as it whispered secrets into Emily's ear that I could never hope to understand. I knew then that we were not alone, that there was something lurking in the shadows, something ancient and malevolent that had latched onto us like a parasite and refused to let go. And as I stared down at the door, its empty eyes staring back at me with a look of twisted amusement, I knew that I would do whatever it took to protect my daughter from the horrors that lurked within its porcelain shell. For in the end, the doll was not just a toy. It was a gateway to a world of darkness and despair. A world that threatened to consume us whole if we didn't find a way to escape its clutches before it was too late.
Thank you for braving the unknown with us. Until next time, stay haunted.